Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Praxis Speech Sister podcast as part of the Pediatric Speech Sister Show Network. I am so thankful and so excited to have my friend here, Ari. She goes by RB Speech. I almost called you RB Speech Girl on Instagram. She was a formal intern of mine, but she was also one of my previous coaching clients for the SLP Praxis exam. And Ari, you have just completely wowed me with how well you managed your time. So not only were you preparing for the comprehensive exams, but you were also in the internship program. You had your placement at a place that specializes in deaf and hard of hearing. You were preparing different materials for the students who you were treating. And did you have classes at that
Not
time?
that semester.
Okay. So you didn't have classes, but
for comps, yeah.
Okay. So just the preparing for comps element that you had. I am going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself, but you all, if you are watching this and watching the replay, please stay till the end because she's going to be giving us a lot of great tips on how to manage your time. And I did want to say, Ari, I use you as an excellent example for manifestation because not only did you get a passing score, but I talk about the mindset shifts that you made, and especially when you decluttered your space and you made that into really like a hobby and started creating content around that. And you would use your study sessions not only with a good friend in your program, but you would also go to cute places in Beverly Hills. So I think I'll probably be asking you some questions about that.
Well,
So,
I would love to share that.
Yes. Please take it away. I'll stop rambling.
Oh, no, I love your rambles. That's why I was your intern for 2 semesters and that we're good friends now. I love the rambles. And I can ramble. So let's just ramble together.
Yay. This is why I love her. This is why I love her. But yeah, no, please go ahead and introduce yourself and then we'll go ahead and get started.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ari Burgoyne, and I'm so happy to be on the Praxis Speech Sister show. I am 26, and I recently got my master's degree from California State University, Northridge. I am also a lifestyle, beauty, and self-care influencer on social media, and I'm currently in my CFY in my clinical fellowship year. We're still working on placements, but I have a love for all things pediatrics. I love early intervention, and we'll see where we end up. I might end up in the schools, but long term, I do want to open up my own private practice and do early intervention. So we'll see. But I'm happy to be here.
Yes, and thank you for coming, and thank you for also sharing with us your goals and your dreams. I'm sure there are a lot of people listening to this or watching this right now with that in their head. But a lot of times, especially if you're preparing for the Praxis exam or if you're in the nitty gritty, I don't know what it was like for you, but if you're in the nitty gritty of studying for the exam and really just trying to survive graduate school, it's hard to think about the bigger picture. So can you actually tell us a little bit about your why you're in the field?
Yes, I will gladly talk about that. So I just love forming real, authentic relationships with families and working with kids to be able to help them communicate in all ways because there's so many means of communication, whether it's AAC, which I really enjoy doing, or when I was doing the deaf and hard of hearing schools when I had my student teaching semester, learning different ways to communicate with sign language and verbal communication, and AAC was kind of multimodal, and I just really love working with the kids and seeing them be able to communicate everything they want, even if it's, I want to watch that Disney movie, I am here for you, we are going to watch that Disney movie, or talk about an anime or anything, I'm just here for it. So I love being able to have that one-on-one connection with my clients and their families and just see how much they grow and develop their own little personalities. So I just love being here, and I'm glad I found this field because I was a psychology major at first, and then I kind of did a 180 and just kind of didn't know what I wanted to do for a while, and then speech kind of just presented itself to me, and I've been in love with it ever since. So I'm just excited to keep growing as an SLP.
We definitely need more psych turned SLPs in this industry, because I was thinking like I would love to go back and get a psych degree, or whenever I pursue my PhD, I would love for it to be in the more psychology side of things. So I think that that's really cool, and I'm really excited to see how you're going to be using that in our profession.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a bachelor's in psychology or anything. It was during undergrad. So my freshman year, I was pretty set. I was going to do psychology and be either a child counselor. It's always been with the kids. But then I was also
Hmm.
thinking, do I become like a marriage and family counselor? But it just wasn't resonating enough. So when I left the school I was at, so I went to Oregon my freshman year, I came back and did community college for 2 years. That time in community college was like I was trying everything. I was taking
Uh-huh.
child child development classes, ASL classes, special education classes, art classes. I thought I wanted to do like graphic design and like digital art. I realize I am a creative, but not exactly like drawing. I'm more of a doodler type of person, but like
Mm.
fine art type of setting is not really my forte. And then I was like, well, should I just go back to psychology? Because that's, where my foundations were. I was pretty set on that, but I still was just kind of not sure. So I ended up speaking to my cousin who's a school counselor. And I was like, what's something that's similar to psychology? Like it has the counseling aspect, but it's more hands on. Because I have done some volunteer work with cerebral palsy patients and Alzheimer's patients and different things, autism, autistic people. And so I was like, what can I do? And
Mhm.
she went down a list of all these things that I can't remember. She did mention forensic psychology, which I considered for a sec because I watched a lot of Bones back in the day.
Love
I
that.
was like, oh, forensic psychology. And then finally she said speech language pathology. And I was like, oh, what is that? And she explained it to me, and I was like, oh, yeah, sign me up. And CSUN is not far from me. It's pretty near to my hometown, and they have a really good communication disorders and sciences program, both for undergrad and graduate. So I was like, okay, yeah, like that's it. We're only applying to CSUN, which was a risk. Did that twice in my academic
Mm.
career and just went from there. And it's been awesome, and I haven't looked back since then.
That's amazing. I love how, like, when you set your sights on something and it just happens, like, thank God. Because I think about how my institution was the only school I applied to for undergrad, not for grad school, but for undergrad. And I'm like, well, thank God I got in because I don't know, I'd be sitting out for another year. But before we get into the praxis, I actually would like for you to talk about your road to being an influencer after getting into this industry.
Ooh. Well, I kind of always had that influencer vibe. I love social media. I started way back when Instagram, that makes me sound so aged, but when Instagram first came out, I was on it. I was posting. And of course, when you're younger, it's very cringy and like just random. But I've always liked taking pictures, being a creative. Ever since I was little, like there's so many home videos of me being front and center in the camera, singing Britney Spears or dressing up and putting on a show or documenting our cruise vacations, just like
Mhm.
forefront. But then I would get, I would try like theater and I was in choir and I just would get very much stage like fright. And I
Mm.
just didn't think I was a creative in that way. I thought I was like, oh, I'm an appreciator of the arts, like behind the camera, not really on a stage per se. And then I've
Mhm.
always been into style and fashion and things like that. But I think when I started influencing and being more serious about it, I think that was when TikTok first came around because before that I was working in retail. I was working at American Eagle, and so I did a lot of styling on the mannequins, a lot of content like that, a lot of promos. So I just started posting a lot of fashion content, a lot of TikToks, and then I became a Disney content creator. I was doing that for a while. Left that, and then I became a SLP content creator once I made that transition into graduate school because the road of undergrad was a lot, and I had a lot of imposter syndrome. I didn't think I was going to get my bachelor's, to be honest. All the transferring and not really knowing what I wanted to do, and just different things in my personal life that were kind of getting in the way and making me second guess like my worth and value and things like that. It was really difficult for me, and I wanted to give up so many times, but I knew that that was something that a lot of people could relate to. And getting into grad school on its own was very stressful because, again, I only applied to CSUN and they're very competitive, and I wasn't sure if I had the grades or the extracurriculars or whatever to get in. And so that was really stressful. So I knew once I got in, it was fate. I was destined to be there. I had a place there. I wanted to just document it. So that's how it started. I did my come with me as a grad student throughout the day. I did outfit content, infographics, and just carried that through. And so I've always been a lifestyle influencer. It's just now we have the SLP vibe. And so I'm excited to start documenting my CF process, and then when I start doing my own things, when I get my C's. So that's how it started, and that's how we're continuing, I suppose.
Yes, yes. And we are excited for you to get your C's. And so let's go ahead and get into the praxis part of it. So if you could tell us a little bit about your praxis journey.
So I think I get very overwhelmed, and it's something Melanie has coached me with through the internship and the praxis coaching. I think in graduate school, each semester presented a different challenge, and I would just get consumed with that challenge. And then somehow I would survive it and go to the next semester. So I feel like it seemed like I was a little behind on the praxis thing. It seemed like other people had already taken it, and that's why they were applying to their CF positions in what I thought was kind of early, because by the time we had comps, they already had their offers and stuff. And I was like looking around, like, what do you mean you already took the praxis? So I felt a little behind, but there is no real time frame. I just put that pressure on myself, like, oh, everyone's already taken it and they've passed already and they've done this and that, and I'm just kind of like in the back of the line type of thing. So I knew I needed to get on it. I ordered the advanced review book, or actually I bought it off a friend. Sorry, I bought it off a friend, and then I just had it, and it was there for I don't know how many months. It was just there sitting in my room collecting space. And I knew that wasn't going to work out with everything else. Preparing for comps, that was stressful, and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So once I saw Melanie's advertisement for her internship and it came with praxis coaching, I was like, oh, yeah, this is what I need right now, because it was just on brand for everything that I needed, on brand for my social media lifestyle, on brand for developing as an SLP, and then on brand for the fact that I was in dire need of praxis coaching, because I think I always have testing anxiety when it comes to big standardized tests like the SAT, the ACT, which I only took once and it didn't go very well, the CBEST, the GRE, all of those. I just wasn't, I guess, disciplined enough to really put in the time and the work to study for it. I would just study and be like, oh, I can do it. But I knew that for the praxis, I needed to be more serious, and I needed to ask for help, because I think that's something I also wasn't really doing before, like asking for help when I needed it. So that's when Melanie and I started our coaching journey. And I knew after the first semester, I needed more of it. I was like, I'm determined to keep going with this. I need the extra help. So we were doing both comp studying and praxis studying, and it worked out because I passed both. But I don't know if it would have happened that way if I hadn't hopped on Melanie's coaching. So thank you, Melanie, because that was a lot. Last semester, praxis and comprehensive exams, it can kind of be a whirlwind of things happening.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I should be saying thank you, because girl, you were a godsend. for the program and the Pediatric Speech Sister brand. So just quick pivot to the Pediatric Speech Sister brand. If y'all were tuned in fall 2023 and summer 2023, like Ari held it down. She was on the leadership team with that. So thank you. So I do want to ask you, when it came to the praxis coaching, what would you say that you really gained in the summertime? And then what made you say, okay, heck yes, I need to do this again for the fall?
Yeah, so in the summer, I had just come back from my trip to the DR, and I was kind of under the weather. I am sure you remember I was like really sick
That
after
was
that
the first
trip.
thing I thought about. I'm like, you were sick, actually.
Yeah, I was sick for a little bit during the summer cohort, but once it started, I realized that what I needed is a coach who understood my not only learning style, but self-doubts, just like everything, like me collectively as a whole, understood who I was, what I needed, and what strategies would be the most helpful. And I also needed someone, just like my gym life, I feel like I need someone there to kind of coach me through the process so I know what I need to do, how to do it correctly, so that I can just, succeed at whatever it is. So I really liked that you had the one-on-one sessions and the group sessions, because I realized that I like groups a lot more than I think I ever thought I would, because it's always been just self-studying, which has its pros but also its cons. I feel like if I self-study and I don't have someone there to hold me accountable, I'll get distracted. I'll be like, ooh, what's that? Ooh, what's that? And then I'm not studying. So I appreciated the one-on-one because we had a lot of life coaching. So really chipping away at that negative self-talk that I had and a lot of us have, but ooh, I had a lot in the beginning. I talked so negatively about myself and my learning style, and you just really created a safe environment for me to address those and figure out ways to get over that. And then I would go into the group sessions with, shout out Kaylee. I'm so excited. We're going to
We
video
love her.
chat soon, but Kaylee was in that cohort, and I liked having her there because we also worked on our self-doubts together. And then you learn that you're not alone in these feelings. And it's helpful to work with other people and kind of adapt to their style. And so you learn what works for you, but also how to come together and study. So we were teaching each other, and Kaylee can attest to that. We all can attest to this. Even in the groups, I would find myself heavy in imposter syndrome, especially in the beginning, where I would be like, oh, like she knows more stuff than I do. Or like, oh, she just sounds so smart when I talk. I'm like stumbling over my words, like, ooh, am I gonna pass this test? Like this, I felt really unsure about myself at first, but Melanie and Kaylee and everyone else who was in the groups, I think helped me realize that I could do way more than I gave myself credit for, and I just needed to rework the mental processes that were kind of self-sabotaging me, and then like really schedule out my time so that I'm doing the things that I need to work on. So I think even in that one cohort, I was like, oh yeah, like I need more of this, because we're just touching the tip of the iceberg with this negative self-talk and like what I can do. So we need to keep this going. We need more of this, because if I don't have that continuous support and accountability, I'm probably going to go back to old habits. And so I wanted to really invest my negative habits and try to correct them and find better habits to practice, not just for the praxis, but in life in general. So I think it's very helpful, and you guys should do it if you're studying for the praxis, because sometimes you can't do it by yourself, and that's okay to need a little bit of help.
Yes, and that actually does bring me to my next question, because like you said, we did work a lot on mindset. So how would you say that that helped you pass And how would you say that that's helping you now, especially now that you're applying for clinical fellowships?
Yeah, so one thing that we talked about in our sessions was like test taking strategies. And I know for me, the imposter syndrome, not just like test taking anxiety, but just imposter syndrome in general. If I'm looking at a test and first question seems like something I don't know, I check out. I start like getting in my head like, oh, if I don't know question number one, I don't know question number two, three, four, five. And then it's just like a cycle of, oh, I probably don't know that. Or even if I know it, I second guess myself and be like, oh, that can't be the answer. That's not it. And then I'll change my answer. So I think something that helped was just taking it question by question, not wasting a lot of energy thinking, oh, I don't know this. It's just like, okay, we're putting that on pause for now. Let's go to the next question, have a different mindset about it, and just be like, you learn this. Like, relax. You know this information. It might just be something that you need to answer the other questions first to remember this thing. So it's okay to kind of skip around as long as you answer all of the questions. But that I think helped. And also just like you mentioned earlier, the decluttering, which I have to do that again. Full transparency, we got a little messy again, like the aftermath of comms and then trying to figure out the CFY, we got a little cluttered again. But what I learned from back then is that your environment really affects you, even if you don't realize it. So they say creatives have the messiest room. And apparently that's accurate because I've, but I realized that I needed to set myself up for success doing that first. So like if my space is not conducive to me, like what I want to do, fix it. Fix it, clean the space, light a candle. We're all about the ambiance and aesthetic. Some people say that's because I'm a Libra. I don't know. But we love an aesthetic. So making your space aesthetic, or if you clean and it's fine, but it's still not the vibe, you go find another place. So you go out to the community, you find a coffee shop, you find something else. Because it was, even with a clean room, it was hard for me at first to focus because I live with other family members. It can get a little loud in here. And so I'll just like check out. I'll just be sitting at my desk and just do this. And then I pick up my phone and then I'm doing everything else that I need to do. But it did help. If I was studying at home, that my space had to be clean. So then my demeanor is more positive, because if I'm just in a messy space and I'm looking around and it's a mess, I'm just gonna go watch YouTube or Netflix and just not get anything done. So I think that really helps, understanding your space and then figuring out ways to stay grounded in your space. So I've brought those crystals because you told me to like hold on to my crystals, help me ground. I've been bringing those crystals to my interviews.
I thought about you. I'm like, I figured she's holding on to them for dear life, which is amazing. Yes.
Anxiety creeps up and you just need something to like recenter yourself. So I think those little things just added up, and then it was like a holistic change that I don't think I noticed at first. I think it was like, well, decluttering is taking too much of my time. So now I'm tired. So now I'm not going to do anything. But it was just like a full circle. Like it's just continuous habits that you either need to break or start. And it was hard for me to break and start. But once I figured it out, it was good. But it was a challenge for me, for sure.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about, a lot of people are like, declutter. Oh my gosh. Like, I really just want to get right into the studying. But just like what you're saying, it's hard. It's hard if you already have let me backtrack, because we talked a lot about feng shui. And pretty much, if no one's familiar with feng shui, look it up. But it's pretty much setting the balance and the energy right, using furniture. And then, of course, candles and crystals, if that's your thing, or plants. And even where you're facing the window matters for you to have that mental energy, like that space in your head. And so if it's, and also I always talk about environment with the people who are around you, because even though they're probably loved ones, their energy might not be aligned for this certain goal that you have right now, because not everyone in your life is studying for the Praxis exam.
No.
So if their energy is more so on football or, whatever, not saying that was for you, but, like if their energy is more so on like football and normal everyday things rather than what you're studying for, that can also be a huge distraction. So moving on, with that said, what are the top tips that you would have for time management for
Ooh.
studying for the exam? Because that's the biggest thing. You've talked about accountability. I always hear it's hard to stay accountable. I hear it's hard to fit in time in my schedule to study. So, and you are just seriously, Ari, like you are excellent at what you do. Like every single thing you do, you make sure you do it with excellence. Even if you don't feel like it's the best, it's still great. So what would you give us some tips? Give us some tips.
Okay. So one of these tips I'm actually taking from your book. Something that, because if you ask Melanie, she'll tell you study in the morning. Each person is different. So like you don't have to do that. But like she'll suggest that you study in the morning. And for me, sometimes mornings, like in the summer.
Hard.
So once we got into fall, it was different because I was in the school. So I had to be there at like certain hours and things like that. But in summer, one of the things that she had recommended was to keep your phone as far away as you can to your bed, because when you set your alarm, you have to go turn it off. At least for me, that works for me. If your alarm is way on the other side of the room and you have to turn it off, you have to get up. You can't rot in the bed. You have to get up and go turn it off, like far away. So I started doing that because I used to have my phone by my bed, and then I'd be on TikTok till
for like 30
hours
minutes
in the night, and then
Yeah.
I'd wake up grumpy, like, why am I so tired? I know. It's because you had your phone, your biggest distraction, by your bed. So I would say keep your phone a distance away from you, because that's a distraction that you don't need. Even when you're studying, if you're setting timers, I would put it a little ways away too, because if it's like right here, oh, I'm going to be glancing at each thing. Also, do not disturb. Put that stuff on focus. You don't want any notifications unless they're dire. But if you're just getting Instagram all day, Snapchat, turn it off. So set your alarm, keep your phone and other distractions away from you. Put that stuff on focus. You need to stay in the mindset. I know some people do the Pomodoro method. I never did that, but I would kind of set my time. So like Monday, I'm going to be studying for an hour from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Once I get my environment to speed, I'll have on like study music, again, aesthetics, ambiance, get that together. I'll set a timer, and so I'll just hyper focus for that hour, and then it will go off, and then I'll take a break. So that's another thing. Take breaks. Don't blame yourself for taking breaks. You need the break. Burnout is such a strong thing in our field, and I'm sure in other fields, but if you're in the SLP field, burnout can get you, and that's because you're not taking breaks. So take your breaks and get a planner. For a while throughout grad school, I had a digital planner, so I used my iPad a lot, and I would get those cheap Etsy digital planners, like get them while they're on sale, pay $1, or you can pay the like $15 ones with all the cool stuff. I just had a regular one, but I would customize it, so I would have the month laid out, each week laid out, by the day, and I would just have lists. Google Calendar. I would just have calendars everywhere. I've done like digital iPad planners. I've had computer planners, phone planners. I think having multiple places where I can see it and know what's coming holds me accountable in that way. You don't need all of that. I would say get one at least. And then just really each week come and do a check-in, like what is my week looking like? How many hours can I study? Because for a minute, I was mostly doing weekends was my study time because I didn't have a lot of stuff going on. So on Saturday and Sundays would be my big study days. And then throughout the week, I just deal with everything else. But over time, you'll understand your schedule more and fit more days in. But definitely find a partner or a group to study with. I think that helped me a lot, not just Kaylee in our internship cohort, but your people in your programs. Find those people, or if it's just one person, because sometimes group, when there's too many people, it's not like a effective study session. You just end up talking about celebrities and gossip and stuff. Don't do that. So yeah, get your planners, create a nice space, get your study buddies, and just be very deliberate. So like today, I'm going to study anatomy and physio, and that's what we're working with. And even if it's like subsections of the chapter, because we know that advanced review book is big.
Yes.
It's a lot of words, a lot of things going on there. It can be a lot. So even if it's just like today, we're going to start with like the first 5 sections and we're going to master these 5 sections and then we're going to move on, do it that way. Whatever really works for you. And that also goes back to knowing your learning style. I'm very much everything. I'm visual. I need to write it down. I need to color. It has to be highlights everywhere, pens. And I have to hear it from other people spoken to me. I can't just read it because I'm not going to know it. I have to say it out loud and get it said back to me. So knowing what your learning style is really helps. So then you know like the next steps you have to take, whether that's flashcards. I know some people in my cohort, big flashcard people. I used to be a Quizlet girl. Not anymore. It doesn't work for me anymore.
What changed with Quizlet? What changed with Quizlet?
Okay, so I used Quizlet a lot in high school because high school, and I think even undergrad and grad school, but not so much grad school, but in high school it's very much teaching to the test. So you can get away with like the flashcards and just like constant repetition.
Right.
For me, once I got into grad school and it was more theories and like you have to explain stuff, then I was like, oh, I should have been explaining stuff out loud a long time ago, because just hearing it in a lecture and writing it down, yes, the writing down helps, but I'm not really understanding it. Like I think I'm understanding it. So I need to not just memorize the definitions, because it's way more than definitions, especially for the praxis. You got your foundations, you got your applications, you got to know what that means. You can't just, the frontal lobe is this, and then that's it. No, you need to know the frontal lobe, where it's located, its function, physiology, what happens if it's like messed up in some way. Like you need to know all of it.
Yeah.
And I realized I wasn't studying that way. That was a very like high school vibe of studying. But once you get into those higher learnings, yes, the flashcards can work. Like for me, if I were still to do flashcards, I would have to use them, but then go to someone and explain what I was saying. Especially if you're overloading on one flashcard, it's not going to stick if you're not coming up with these hypothetical questions to explain it. Because I can memorize text on a flashcard all day, but if you ask me a question that's like kind of related, but maybe not related to what I put on that flashcard, I'm going to go, I don't know. I don't think I know that answer. So for me, that doesn't work. I know for my other classmates that can work, but I'm sure they do it differently than I would have. So that just wouldn't work for me. I need to like take notes, meet up with someone, talk about it, have them correct me. And then you get to have confidence. Like you could be corrected, but they might not be correcting you. Like they might be telling you something else. So like for you to have confidence in what you studied and what you know, you can like have those little like debates. and then you reference the book, and then you figure out
There we go. That's
who's like on the
awesome.
right track. And it's not like it was never a negative environment with that. It's just like not just being like, okay, like, oh yeah, you're right, because how would I know that? You're right, and just going with the flow
Right.
like that. I think you
Yeah.
have to be able to stand your ground and like argue in like a not a like a argumentative way, but be able to support what you're saying with facts. And like maybe
Mhm.
you both are relatively correct, but there's something missing, or you remembered something that they didn't remember, so you're teaching each other. And so it just helps with the learning because you're able to articulate it more, gets in your head more. So everyone's different, but I need all
Yes.
things for
Yes.
my success.
And thank you for mentioning just other test taking strategies, like the study strategies that you use, the learning, just going against your learning styles. You're not even against it, but going towards your learning styles and staying true to that. I didn't even think about that being such a benefit for group studying is debating with each other. And it's like, no, this is actually why I'm right. This is what the book says, and talking it out with each other because believe it or not, even those arguments will help you remember the content even more
Hmm.
because your emotions are attached to it.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
even not even just arguments like that, but I know like Kaylee, if you're watching, I'm sure you're gonna watch this. That's my friend.
we love
Uh,
her.
we would argue, not like argue, but like if I was resorting back to negative self-talk,
Mm,
Kaylee would call me out and Melanie would call me out. I would get called out left and right, like, no,
right.
we're not thinking that way. Like, do it
Yeah.
again. Like, just like, and being able to have the time to process what you're trying to say. Because I think even in interviews, when you're asked a question, you can almost immediately be like, I don't know. But it's
Mm,
because you didn't really take that time to like think about what the question is asking. You just hear, what is this? And you go,
mhm,
what is that?
mhm,
And then you're just sitting there. I think with the teaching style of the group sessions where we would split up the sections of a chapter that we're in. And so it's like, we're talking, the general thing is like aphasia, but the first section is Broca's aphasia. So like that's my part. So my
mhm.
responsibility is to read all the stuff in the advanced review, um, and then understand it so that I could teach the class. And that was scary because it just takes me back to like being on stage and like you know it, and then you get on the mic and the light's shining on
Yeah.
you. No, thank you. Get me off the stage. So that was really hard for me,
Yeah.
especially because just the imposter syndrome. I'm like, oh, they articulate that so well. What am I gonna say?
Yeah.
And so there was a while, like weeks, where it would be my turn, and I would go, so this is this, um, and I think
Mm,
it was a lot of that, and your body
mhm.
language exposes you so much, and you could be saying the right stuff, but if you're going, and I would laugh a lot. I'd go, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, and I just did not think I would remember or know it, and then it's also that fear. Like I've been in grad school for like how long, and like I can't
Yeah.
articulate what this means. Ooh,
Yeah.
they're gonna be like, why was she even in grad school to begin with? But
Mm,
then after a while, I was able to say it, even if I wasn't fully sure, but just be more confident about it. And then be able to talk to Kaylee or talk to Melanie and like explain it more. And then we would catch each other too. So like I'd be explaining it and someone would be fact checking. They're looking in the book. They're like seeing if
mhm.
you're on point. They would let you finish and then it would be open floor. Like, is there anything you think she could have added, or was there anything that you were confused about? And then it's like, actually, yeah, when you said this, I think you were confused with this. And then it's like, oh, yeah, you're right, or like that's what I meant, but like I didn't say it correctly or something. And then it's like, okay, next time. And then you don't
Mhm.
feel so alone, because then it's the next person's turn and they have to go and explain the next thing. And they might not say all the points, or you might remember something that they don't say. And it's like, oh, I remembered something. So it was
Yes.
really helpful with that, I think.
And that actually makes me think about like the importance of having accountability partners, because we normally think about accountability partners like I need someone to keep me accountable in the sense of pretty much just make sure I do it.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure I do it and make sure I do it at the time that we say we're going to do it. But accountability partners, especially with the group setting, was important because just like what you say, like it's easy for us to say, this is what it is, or this is how I'm interpreting this, but your partner's keeping you accountable. Like, no, actually, let's dive a little deeper. Or this is something else that you could have said. And that just helps you learn more and more. So I like how you mentioned that memorization strategies. I wouldn't say high school vibe because they also work in undergrad and they
Mm-hmm.
work for those like simple foundational terms. But just like what you said and what I teach in the program is you gotta know how to, you gotta critically think. And it takes a lot. You can actually get by grad school. I've had clients who complained at the fact they were able to get by in grad school by just memorizing it. But the praxis exam wants to weed that out. Because if you, I say it like this, imagine having a doctor who just memorized the terms at face value, but have no idea what those terms mean or how they relate to the rest of your body, you know? So all right. So, before we go, Ari, I do want to ask you some questions that some audience members on Instagram had for you. You did mention how you do prefer planners,
Mm-hmm.
and I like how you mentioned having a planner everywhere because that actually cues your subconscious mind. This is important. I'm opening up my planner. I'm seeing this written down. I'm getting notifications on my phone about it. I'm opening up Google Calendar on my laptop. Like it's everywhere. So, thank you for mentioning that. um, Recommendations or advice to someone starting the application process for a CFY.
Ooh. Okay, so we're in there together.
Love
I
it, love it.
think just kind of knowing where, like what area you want to be in is a good start. I've been kind of going back and forth, which is okay because you don't have to make a decision right out of the gate. But I have always considered myself a very private practice person, and you'll see that in, or I'm sure you've seen it since you're getting into the CFY, that people, it's like in threes for the most part. You have your meds, you have your peds private practice, and you have your schools. And so they're
Mhm.
very set on that from the beginning. So people come in and they're like, I'm going to be a medical SLP. I want to be in the hospitals, da 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 da. That may change because I came in and I'm still long term. I'm going to go private and things like that. But before my student teaching semester, I was like, oh, like I'm probably not gonna like the schools, like I'm gonna go private. So that's what I'm gonna do. And so, but then I had my student teaching semester and I was like, oh, the schools aren't that bad. Maybe we'll start here. So I think kind of having an idea of what setting you want to be in is a good start, but also having backups because it may be a little daunting once you get on Indeed and you're looking
Mm.
for CFY and maybe you're coming across a lot of you need your C's type of thing and you're not really seeing what you're looking for. Kind of having a little bit of a backup plan, like what's available to me and like what are my options, and then just go on the hunt. I have an account on Monster, and at the time, which I don't know if I would recommend this now, but at the time I had my resume and everything open, and my contact information open so employers could contact me. But what I found when I did that is a lot of non SLP positions were calling me
Mm.
daily. So I don't know, I don't know if I would open my contact info to that regard. Um, but have several people look over your resume because that is important. I've heard some places don't want your resume more than 2 pages, so have someone look it over, try to concise it a little bit. um, Make sure everything, all the typos are in order, and very much showcasing your strengths. and just have that up there. It might be a slow process. It was a slow process for me at first. Now we're getting some offers, so we're trying to figure out which way to go. But I would just say be patient with yourself. There's not a rush. You don't have to figure it out right now. There's so much time to figure it out. Definitely reach out to the Instagram community. They might know of places that are hiring. Because different grad schools are different. So if you had a clinical semester at a place that you really like, go back and network, go talk to them. They might have something for you, because not everyone advertises the CF position. And that's what I've noticed. It's like SLP, SLP, SLP. So don't get too worried about that. Look at the fine print, because later down the line, it might say CFY/RPE. And then you go, oh, there we go, finally. So just keep your options open, network, try to figure out who's hiring, and just be confident. It's a mind game too. You got to prepare yourself, get your outfit right, get potential questions that might be asked in your head so you can answer them. Use those test-taking strategies, because they do come into play. If you get asked a question and it seems like a big question that you never thought of, you can always do the repeat back method. What is my ideal supervisor? Qualities in a supervisor. And then you pause, you think about it. I would say, and you come with a vengeance, like you already knew that answer. And just don't get discouraged so easily, because it's going to look like, just like it is in grad school, that everyone has their P's and Q's in order, and they just got the offer right away, and they're in their dream placement and blah, blah, blah. And then you're still like looking, you're trying to figure it out. So I would say just show up with grace. That's what we say. That's what Melanie says a lot. Show yourself some grace. It might take a little bit, but and like what I tell people when they're applying to grad school, like have a list of like things you want: salary, setting, location. Because right now I'm debating if I'm trying to relocate somewhere. But if that's a big thing for you, understanding that, what you want in a supervisor, how much education they're offering, and just like what you want. Benefits. Get those benefits written down, because I know that's important for me. And just be patient, because it might take a minute. As you can see, it's taking a minute. But we're there. We're getting there.
So why would you say it's taking a minute?
Well, okay. I was feeling a little burnt out at the end of, during my last semester. And so I was, on the one hand, putting a lot of pressure on myself, because I was like, people already have their offers. Like, they had their offers like in October, which surprised me. I was very shocked with that. I was burnt out. And so I kind of just took time for myself. I just rested. I went to the bookstore, got some books, invested in my hobbies. And so I felt like I got complacent. For me, it was like a needed break. But then the anxiety kicks in, the pressure kicks in, and I go like, everyone's starting to work, or like they're gonna work in a month, and I'm like, I haven't even started. So I think it was like a slow process for me to like, I guess, like regain that confidence back that I can start applying, and like, what am I looking for? But I think I was just milking the break. And then I had a New Year's Eve wedding this past year, I guess this year. I just had things going on, so I just milked it. And by the time I was like, okay, like we need to get serious, like we need to start looking, we got bills to pay and stuff. I felt a little bit behind, like even more so when I started. And then the imposter syndrome of like not finding the placements that want to take you, because if you look on Indeed, which I would probably say don't go through Indeed, reach out to them directly, because Indeed is going to like flag you for little things because of the way they put the ad up. So like the ad could say CFY or like SLP, like licensed SLP. And so in the description, it'll have like, you just need your master's, blah, blah, blah. Or if you're like a licensed SLP, you need your C's. But if you apply through Indeed, which was kind of throwing me off, if you didn't have the C's, because how it was like structured, like coded, if you didn't have your C's, it would be like, well, you can't apply. You can't go any further. So I think that was discouraging. And then just, so my school direction, LAUSD had halted their interview process. So that was what I was like going into. I was determined to be in the schools because I liked my 2 little elementary schools. So I was like, I could do this. But then when they halted it, I was like, well, now what? Like, what am I supposed to do? They're back on. They're starting to get the process going for the next school semester. But that limbo of not knowing when they're coming back kind of set me back a little. But you'll get there. The right thing will come to you and then it'll work out. But we'll see.
Because one thing I thought about, Ari, is when you and I were working together and like during your coaching sessions, you had very specific, you had a vision for your clinical fellowship year. And so a lot of times I feel like when you are getting no's or when things just aren't right, first of all, that's you trusting your intuition and not going for it just because of the comparison. So shout out to you for that. But also, you know, if you already put it out in the universe that you want a certain experience, count it all joy. Like you're going to get exactly the one that you're looking for.
That is true. And that's something we're working on, that manifestation. I feel like everyone in their own way kind of have manifestation like feelings. But when it's not as intentional, I feel like it has been since working with you. It's just in the up and up. So like I got my most recent offer and it started raining. It like rained out of nowhere in LA. And my, like, on the one hand, my brain's going like, is this an omen? Is this a bad sign? And then the other part of me is like, well, like I heard in like different cultures, like if it rains, like it's good luck.
Love that.
So I was like trying to reframe it and it was pouring like thunder, lightning. And so I was like,
And that doesn't rain often in LA, by the way, y'all. So
we had the storm like a couple months or last month, but this was just like a random like day of the week. Like the rest of the days were pretty sunny. So I was like, this is so funny that the day I got this offer and the day that I heard that like another interview process was starting up again, I was like, oh, interesting. And so I've just been sitting in that and trying to like focus on what it is I want and really weigh if these offers are what I want and have been manifesting. So we're going with our intuition, but after this we're gonna really self-reflect and make that call because gotta make a decision. And then go from there. Like whatever the consequences, good or bad, comes from my choice is what it is, because we're still on that manifestation thing. Melanie made me an audio recording that I was like listening to for the CFY, and I think you made me one for the Praxis too. So it's like all encompassing, but it really goes back to like your mental state and like what you count as blessings and what you kind of count as like negative stuff. And it's all just based on you. Like if it's for you, like you'll know. And I just had a conversation with someone else about this with the offers. Like, you know if this is for you or if it's not. And if it's not, like it is what it is. Like you'll get another offer. Like it's not even, don't even worry about it. But we're all perfectionists, so like we want to know for sure. So we'll see.
Yes, well, I am so very excited, and we can definitely talk a little bit more about this. But I'm very excited for your journey, and thank you for just sharing your experience with the Praxis exam, and especially with clinical fellowships, because I'm sure people who will be watching this are like, give me something, because I don't even know where to start. So, what is there anything else that you want to tell us before you go?
Well, you can follow me on Instagram at RABSpeech. I think everything will be in the description box, but
Yes.
I don't know if you've heard of the platform Geneva. It's
Mm.
a forum app where people can form communities and come together. And so I'm working with Just Judy Lemon. We love her. Amanda. Reach out to me, I'll add them and everything. But we created a forum on there. It's called SLPs for SLP2Bs. And it's basically having a diverse community of SLPs come together and get your questions answered, and just be the support system for all of y'all in whatever stage of this SLP journey you are in. And we're having our first event on April 4th. So I will give you the link for that. If
Yay.
you want to sign up, it's
Please.
free. It's just an app, and we're there to support and just keep diversifying the community, because we both know it's not like as diverse as it could be. So we're just creating that safe space so that whatever questions you have, whether it's grad school, CFY, after CFY, once you have your C's, we're there for you. So join us on there. And yeah, I'm just happy to have been on here. So thank you again for having me.
Yes, yes. All right. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody who is watching the replay or listening to this on the podcast platform. Go ahead and check out the show notes. Y'all, community matters. So, just like what Ari said at the very beginning, she wanted to give up so many times. And I just keep hearing that. And the SLP Praxis might try to throw those curveballs and will really challenge your confidence in yourself. Just like what Ari said, you were really capable of doing this. And by getting the right community, it makes things even better. So thank you so much, Ari, for your time today. And I look forward to chatting again soon.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming. See you next time.